You know, for centuries, we've all wondered about one of the biggest questions there is. Can that initial, crazy, head-over-heels feeling of romantic love actually last? Or is it just doomed to fade? Well, today we're going to go way beyond poetry and look right inside the human brain for the real answer.
So let's just ask it straight up. Can you really stay madly in love with someone for decades? For the longest time, that question was left to poets and philosophers. But now, neuroscientists are getting in on the action, and trust me, what they're finding might completely change how you think about long-term relationships.
Right? We've all heard this. This idea that the wild, passionate fire of a new romance just kind of has to burn down into the warm, comfortable embers of companionship. And look, that's a nice thought, but it always implies that something important gets lost, that the passion just has to go away. But what if that common wisdom is just wrong? Well, to find out, a group of researchers designed a really brilliant experiment. They decided to look directly into the brains of people who claimed they were still intensely in love after being together for many, many years. They weren't just going to take their word for it. They were going to find the actual biological proof.
And get this, the people in this study weren't just a few years in. Nope, they'd been married for an average of over 21 years. I mean, these were couples who had built entire lives together, raised kids, and weathered all the storms life can throw at you, and they still said they felt that intense, romantic spark.
So, how'd they do it? The method was actually pretty simple. While a person was inside an fMRI scanner, which just measures brain activity, they were shown a photo of their partner. Then, for comparison, they were shown a photo of a really close long-term friend. By subtracting the friend brain activity from the partner brain activity, the scientists could pinpoint the unique signature of long-term romantic love. Pretty clever. And this brings us to the first massive discovery from the study. And it is a big one. It turns out that old spark, it doesn't just flicker out. For some people, it's still burning just as brightly as it did at the very beginning. So, scientists already knew that when you scan the brains of people who just fell in love, you see a ton of activity in the brain's reward system. But here's the incredible part. These long-term couples, they showed high activity in the exact same dopamine-rich areas. That powerful feeling of reward and motivation, it was still there 20 years later. The star player here is a little part of the brain called the ventral tegmental area, or the VTA. You can basically think of the VTA as the motivation engine in your brain. It's packed with dopamine, and it's what fires up when you really want something, whether that's a piece of cake, a big promotion, or, yep, your romantic partner. And this study showed it was still firing on all cylinders for these long-term lovers.
But that wasn't the whole story. I mean, the reward system explained the passion, but the scans revealed a second, equally important system humming along in the background, one that points to a much deeper, more stable kind of connection. The researchers found something else that was just fascinating. These long-term lovers also showed a lot of activity in brain regions that are tied to maternal attachment, you know, that incredibly profound bond between a mother and her child. This tells us that long-term love isn't just about reward, it's also about a deep, primal feeling of attachment.
And this attachment system is totally different from the reward system. It's less about that frantic, high-energy wanting that comes with dopamine, and more about a calm, pleasurable liking that's associated with chemicals like oxytocin and vasopressin. This is the system that makes us feel safe, secure, and content. It's basically the biological glue for our most stable relationships.
So, when you put these two huge discoveries together, you get something really, really special. Long-term love isn't just a faded version of new love. It's this unique and powerful combination, creating its own distinct signature in the brain.
It really boils down to two systems working side by side. On one hand, you have that dopamine system, the VTA, that drives the feeling of wanting, of motivation. And on the other hand, you have this attachment system, which creates the feeling of liking, that deep pleasure and calm you feel just being with your partner.
And this is the most crucial point. Long-term romantic love isn't a watered-down version of early passion. It's actually more complex. You could even say it's more powerful. It's the original passion combined with this deep, calming attachment. It's an addition, not a subtraction. It's an upgrade.
Okay, so we've geeked out on the brain scans, but what does this actually mean for us in our lives? Well, this research has some pretty profound implications for how we can understand and maybe even approach our own relationships.
It all kind of boils down to this simple but incredibly powerful equation. True lasting love seems to be this fusion of two fundamental systems, the motivational wanting that fuels the passion and the deep, pleasurable liking that fuels the attachment. It really is the ultimate partnership in the brain.
There is one really key difference, though. The study also found that long-term love tends to shed the obsessive and, let's be honest, sometimes anxious parts of early love. You know that feeling? The can't eat, can't sleep, constantly thinking about them stage? In lasting love, the intensity and reward are still there, but that anxiety and obsession get replaced by a real sense of calm and security.
And this, right here, is the truly hopeful takeaway. This study gives us the first real, biological evidence that for some people, that feeling of reward, of intense attraction for a partner, it just doesn't have to fade. It can be sustained, lighting up the brain in the exact same way it did in those first crazy months.
Which, of course, leaves us with the ultimate question. If we know that lasting love is made of both passion and attachment, the spark and the bond, how can we consciously work to nurture both of those systems in our own relationships? That's really the challenge this amazing science leaves with all of us.